Well, a very, I don't know if I can say pleasant afternoon to you all across Guyana, because really it's not pleasant times that we're experiencing. So I don't know how to greet you this afternoon, but to say that we're in troubled times and we need to be prepared to deal with the current situation that are facing us in this country. On this afternoon's program, as usual, I have Professor Clive Thomas and Brother Desmond Trotman. Welcome once again to Walter Rodney Groundings.
Thank you, Deon.
In this country of ours. You talk about torture and all of these things. We have been calling for so many commissions of inquiry in relation to torture, in relation to all these scams that would have taken place. And even the CLICO, the last major request for an inquiry would have been the CLICO thing. And Jagdi always finds some way of linking a non-issue to an issue. All right? With CLICO, it was Globe Trust. Now it's if Ramsamy, it's Waddell. You know, these kinds of things. Can we expect any inquiry from the government?
And Deon, we closed on a note last week in which we reminded our viewers that people see the use of people's power is a weapon that governments like this one and governments are, are found very difficult to defeat. And so that in addition to all of those other areas of support, once it is that people decide in this country that they're using the power at their disposal to demand the kind of investigation that they want, it is going to happen. I believe it is going to happen. And it will happen this time. It is not going to be the kind of investigation that looked into Gadradge's involvement with the death squad. It will have to be an investigation that is international in its composition.
But I, in all of this, Jagdio undoubtedly is culpable. All right? Now, he says and he does things in Guyana because of some kind of protection he has under the Constitution. Now, Peeping Tom would have been over time arguing that Jagdio is not above the Constitution and above the law, that he can be brought to justice and so on. Now, nobody has put that to the test yet. Now, is he this invincible in the international arena?
Of course not. No president is. So no president of any one country is above international law.
Right.
So that's why we have to look to that arena for opportunities to bring justice to all those people who me more than remember. My principal motivation in all this is not only to change the PNP government because it has been backward politically, it destroyed the country, but also because they've committed crimes, I think, against Guyana that are so profound, crimes against humanity that are so deep and vast that it must be part of every Guyanese mission to ensure that they are answerable in a court of law for what has happened. That's my principal motivation. I think that we have to find means to make that legal, and we need to bring it up as much as we can to courts that may have a jurisdiction over the matter, such as the International Court, but we also should not forget regional courts. I've also always argued, because I'm not a legal scholar, and that's why maybe I'm just doing this out of ignorance, that we need to get to the Caribbean Court of Appeal, because people told me you have to exhaust all the possibilities internally before you go. But there are many famous political situations that have been brought to attention and notice of the world. When people go to the court doors of certain courts and pin petitions, and we need to go to the Court of Justice in Trinidad and pin petitions demanding A, B, C, D, E, F, whatever it is. Bring international and regional notice to what we've done and use that as the basis of trying to leverage some legal opportunities to have these matters brought up within a court that has jurisdiction over our affairs. If we can't do that, let's go to the larger and wide international courts. But we must do something.
Deon, you could remember Pinochet?
Yeah, I remember Pinochet.
And remember he that thought that he was above the law?
Right.
And
And in fact, he was,
one of the recommendations which Professor Thomas talked about is seeing this, going to this magistrate in Spain. A really fascinating thing if you really think about it, you know, because he has the ability to bring dictators to heel. He has the ability to bring dictators to heel, and I would like to see if a case is made out, a formidable case is made out to him, before him, in relation to Jagdio's excesses, and he issues an international warrant for his arrest. I want to see what Jagdio will do.
But Jagdio said he's sure that if he does have that hanging over his head, it's Corbyn who will go.
Yeah, well, let him go and do that. That I'd be happy with that. He and Corbyn can go. But the point of the truth is that if he wants to go to Europe, we have to make it possible for some arrest warrant to be issued.
Okay, well, we have to ensure that, I mean, we have talked so much about so much work that would have been done during the time of Barnum by legal minds. You know, but
I don't want to say Guyanese lawyers are lazy, but I've been on this point time and time again. Whenever I speak to the lawyers, eventually they concede, maybe because of my persistence, that I may have a point. But nobody wants to take it up. They find all sorts of excuses.
Is it money that they want?
Well, it will be costly because you have to bear that in mind. But there's some things you have to pay the price for. And I think if we can get allies overseas through any civic or legal associations that we may have at the NGO level, the community level, that we need to do that.
I know of at least one senior counsel in Deon who is prepared to do a lot of that work for bono. And he will welcome any assistance that you can get from other lawyers. But you know, the point that you made about lawyers looking for fees and those things, you know, a lot of them seem to be guided by
but some are not.
Some are not. And let us hope that we can be able to put together a team of those persons in order to do a lot of the work that is required.
And there's a very important side benefit we can get. Because all this history that we're having now needs to be documented. Remember I told you an incident with Barbados and all those people. We suffered from the fact that they didn't have any manuals, any dossiers of what has been taking place. We need to have dossiers on everything that has happened. All the people murdered, all the people, statements from all the family, everything brought together in one place. I know they exist now in different places, but we need it all brought together in one manual. And this may be the opportunity to force that situation. All those names released in the courts in Brooklyn need to be documented somewhere that is accessible to all Guyanese. All the phone numbers, including the phone number of the leader of the opposition. I mean, it's a highly responsible thing to do, but you're listed as phones that are being tapped. And many governments have fallen for just trying to do that. Because you can't be using as a state and with instruments that you are buying, presumably through the state, to monitor your opposition.
Through a criminal element.
But not whether even through a criminal element or not. The purpose of security forces is not to monitor people for political opposition acts that are not illegal. How can you justify putting a tap on the head of the Republican Party? And what would have happened if Bush had put a tap on Barack Obama?
Yeah, but we have the
a president fell because they sought to wiretap the headquarters of the Democratic Party.
So, I mean, things are so taken for granted here. And it's the same reason why you could have had these tape recordings of the Commissioner of Police and all of these things.
But Deon, Professor Thomas is making an even more important point. I'm quite sure that when those numbers are released, you will find that a lot of innocent persons who had no connection with crime, you know, had their phones tapped simply because somebody may have made a call.
Friend of that person.
Something like that.
And that brings to the fore the fact that so many people were killed, and many of them you never heard of them being involved in any kind of criminal activity, but they might have just received.
Most of the people who were killed were wanted after the fact.
Well, so
the police, most of those people who were killed, the police only put out wanted notices after they were.
And all those things can be established by a commission of inquiry. And we also have to have the dates of all those wanted bulletins when they were issued in relation to the death of the person. So that's why we have to force us to do a humongous documentation of all that took place and transpired in Guyana from 2000 right up to today.
So, a crisis is before us. We talk about protests, we talk about taking legal action. Now, the people of Guyana they talk about these things, but this whole movement to have the masses galvanized and to bring them out on the streets. In other places, they would have already been on the streets for these kind of things. Yeah. But we talk so much about the Guyanese masses being so passive. Is this going to be the issue?
Well, it's going to be an issue, yes, because last year, when we were discussing on this program, and the same weekend we were discussing, the issue of the celebration of Emancipation Day came up. You remember we had expressed some concern that youths were being picked up in large numbers in the Agricola and all, Boys Town, up the East Coast and all that, particularly black urban youth. And yet they were going ahead with the celebrations. This is also pertinent now because there was a humongous crowd out there yesterday, particularly after 4 o'clock, where the crowd started thickening very, very rapidly. Will we be able to get such numbers out and protest, if we call protest? One hopes so. But the point which I want to make is that we have to be careful that we don't dilute the energies or divert the energies of Guyanese. By holding a celebration for freedom in the midst of this crisis, I think we're misplacing our priorities. I think that we should have cancelled that celebration yesterday. And not to postpone it forever, but cancel it, postpone it to some later date. Just because this situation is so emergent, so emergency natured, that we need to have given it the focus and the priority that is required. And I'm sorry that we had to go ahead because I'm hoping that tomorrow they'll be able to get as many people as the ACDO got on Saturday. And the pity that I have to be sitting here hoping for that. That should be automatic. And I think the cancellation of the Freedom Festival would have given some stimulus to large numbers turning out tomorrow, or whenever it is that the protests are being planned for this week.
Well, we lost Corazon Aquino.
But
yes, that's very important because when we talked about Pinochet, I remember the war in the struggle for people's power.
Against
and Marcos, and she survived several coups, based on that notion of people's power. Yeah.
So,
but Deon, the point that Professor Thomas made is extremely important in relation to this, the observance of the celebrations yesterday. And I think what it really means is that black leaders, African leaders in this country, really got to do a critical examination of themselves. They got to look at themselves and ask where are we in relation to what is taking place. You cannot have a situation in which it is largely African young men and women are being harassed by
and leaders of ACDO.
And leaders of ACDO also are being harassed by a repressive government, and that you're acting as if everything is business as usual. In that kind of situation, you could only be signaling to your constituents that things are not as bad as people claim, and we have to be able to, if it is that ACDO wants to be successful in its effort to emancipate people, emancipate African Guyanese in this period, ACDO has to take on board what is taking place and run with it.
And we look forward to next week's program, when we can really say that positive things are happening in Guyana. Do enjoy the rest of your evening.